Concurrent Resolution 107, establishing a joint legislative investigating committee to investigate the status of 2 executive agreements going back to 1893. First up, Marjorie Irway, in support. Ho'o Heva Heva Nui Ohana Council, in support. Jerry Rochelle, in opposition. Kerry Smith, in opposition. Sovereign Councils of the Hawaiian Homelands Assembly, Mr. Kahikina. Actually, we have everybody else in support. Let me just run through late testimony. I believe Office of Hawaiian Affairs, Association of Hawaiian Civic Clubs, and were there any departments here to testify? We'll come back to the whole list of folks in just a second.
Again, thank you for the opportunity to testify. My name is Suli Stroud with the Association of Hawaiian Civic Clubs. In earlier testimonies, we mentioned that at our convention we passed several resolutions. I would like to make note that over 50 resolutions were passed at our convention. And this resolution I speak to in my testimony is Resolution 1015. And the delegates at convention again passed this resolution in acknowledging Queen Lili uokalani's agreement with President Grover Cleveland to execute Hawaiian law and restore the Hawaiian government. Our position as an association is we do support this resolution. We feel that additional historic research and study in the form of this legislative investigation is in order, and we again support it. I would also like to make note if the resolutions that the association referred to today, if this committee would like to have copies of those resolutions, we'd be happy to supply those. Thank you.
Can you see a quick count of hands? How many folks are here to testify on this measure? How many of you guys? Okay, I guess we'll run through that. I was going to try and speed it up. Papa Ololokahi, in support. Keali'i Makikau.
Stand by the test roll.
Thank you very much. Devlin Anu, in support. Judy Lundberg Hopner, in support. Kathy Corcoran, in support. Cal Nismith, in support. Puhi Gibson, in support. Teresa Nakama, in support. Sydney Iokea, in support. Tom Kaufman, in support. Christopher Nakahashi, in support. Tai Tengen, in support. Ken Conklin, in opposition.
What was that? Oh, my serious. What was that?
Conklin.
Kenneth Conklin. E. Dunbar, in opposition. Kamuela Kalilikane, in support. Joaquin Kunkel, in support. Tammy Pereira, in support. Frederick Torres Pestana, in support. Sovereign Councils of the Hawaiian Homelands Assembly, Michael Kahikina, in support. Elvin Kekalike Kamoku, in support. Keli'i Loane, in support. Momilani Lushenko, in support. Keanu Sai, in support. Rohan Kalyan, in support. Kanaka Council, Kale.
Aloha kākou. My name is Kale Gumapek, alakai for Aha Kanaka Moko o Keawe. Aha Kanaka Moko o Keawe supports the passage of this House Concurrent Resolution 107. Previously unknown in contemporary legal understandings of Hawaii history are 2 executive agreements that settled the overthrow of the Hawaiian government and continue to remain binding upon the current United States President Barack Obama. As successor of President Grover Cleveland under both international law and the U.S. federal law, The first agreement is a temporary and conditional assignment. It's conditional upon this committee for you to pass out this resolution in order for this information to be brought forth before the legislature. And I presented this testimony with a lot of information for you to be able to read, okay? And the Aha Kanaka Moku Okeawe calls upon the state of Hawaii to adhere to and to conform to the Supremacy Clause of the United States Constitution, whereby the executive agreements are the supreme law of the land, and anything in the Constitution or laws of the state of Hawaii to the contrary notwithstanding. And so in closing, because you'll be able to read the testimony. In closing, I suggest that this committee passes this resolution out on committee in light of the executive agreements and the mandate of the Supremacy Clause, because you swore an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States, which includes the Supremacy Clause. The executive agreements exist, and the Kingdom of Hawaii Constitution is the law of the land, of which it is very important to uphold because of these executive agreements that are in existence. And as you read and as you research and you bring forth the experts that will be able to show you that these executive agreements that was made, the Lili uokalani assignment and the restoration agreement that was made between Lili uokalani and Grover Cleveland, they exist, and the Kingdom Constitution was in existence, but it was hidden away. And now it's now being brought forth, and thank goodness for Dr. Keanu Sai, because he was the one that brought it forth. Mahalo.
Thank you very much. Willie Daniel Kawai.
Aloha committee.
Aloha.
My name is Willie Kawai. I am a PhD candidate at the University of Hawaii, Manoa. I am specializing right now in international relations and public law. My dissertation provides a legal analysis of citizenship law from the 18th century, the end of the 18th century, until today's present day. The executive agreements entered into between heads of state, Queen Lili and President Grover Cleveland on December 18th, 1893, has a profound legal consequences to citizenship in Hawaii today. And so, for that reason alone, I fully support HCR107, which would establish an investigative committee to further look into this matter. Alongside my PhD research, I'm also an instructor of political science at the University of Hawaii. This semester, I was assigned to teach Hawaii Politics 301, which an entire unit of my class was dedicated to looking into the executive agreement and also looking into some of the legal ramifications of the executive agreement as well. Alongside the political science department at the University of Hawaii, the Richardson School of Law is also engaged in this research. The history department at the University of Hawaii, the geography department, Windward Community College Hawaiian Studies, Maui College Hawaiian Studies. And so the establishment of an investigative committee would afford the Hawaii State Legislature, along with all branches of government, and also the general public, an opportunity to become educated regarding this profound matter. And so it is for these reasons that I support HCR 107.
Thank you. Raylene Vaea, in support. Mary Lindsay Correa, in support. Wallet Garcia Pellegrino, in support. Uokalani Capero, in support. Charlene Kana, in support. Lorenz Ganshore, in support. Oh, please come up. Guessing you're not Charlene, right?
Lawrence Concho. Aloha mai kako. My name is Lawrence Gonsher. I am, just like Willie, I'm a PhD student in political science at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. And I would like to testify in favor of House Resolution 107 that was introduced by Representative Mele Carroll, whom I particularly want to thank for taking this initiative. I have studied political history of Hawaii in great detail, and from this research I'm aware of the critical importance of the 1893 executive agreements between Queen Lili and President Grover Cleveland. Well, given the significance of these executive agreements for the political status of the Hawaiian Islands, I have been astonished, I must say, that they are not rarely ever mentioned in contemporary Hawaii so far. I've neither heard, it hasn't been neither in the curriculum of the public education system nor in political debates have these executive agreements really been mentioned so far. So I think the establishment of a Joint Legislative Investigative Committee to examine the status of these two executive agreements would be an excellent choice in order to clarify these important issues, which are so crucial for the current status of Hawaii. So I therefore would like to give my full-hearted support to Resolution 107. Mahalo for your attention.
Thank you very much. Dr. Peter Moore.
Well, again, you have my testimony in front of you, and so beyond that testimony, I wanted to say, for my doctorate, I focused on Hawaiian government and politics and American government and politics, and I currently teach those topics at Windward Community College, and I've taught them before over UH Manoa. And we already teach these executive agreements, and we teach what executive agreements mean in American government and politics, and what these agreements could mean or should mean. And I'm sure you've heard all of that already from other testimony. So I just want to say, don't punt this to the federal level. Yes, don't say that those guys ought to take care of that. We're over in Kaneohe, so occasionally we get military students that sit in our class, and they get exposed to this information, and it's mind-blowing for them to see this information. And they, I get the obvious question, well, what does this mean? What are we supposed to do with this information? And my response, my standard response is, well, you want to be well informed. What this means, those are larger questions and larger forces will be involved. I'd like to see you guys be one of those larger forces that has an investigative committee. And of course, it doesn't ask you to come to any sort of action-oriented end, but an investigative committee that is well informed. That's I don't have to tell you that's part of your responsibilities. You guys know that already. Move this forward, and let's have some sort of government be responsible about investigating what these things mean. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Paige Viella. In support. Alicia Leopoldino. In support. Amy Peruso. In support. Ann Thurston. In support. Malia Davidson. In support. Shane Sinensi. In support. Maria Levy. In support. Lynette Ilani Cruz.
Aloha. I'm standing on my testimony, of course. I wanted to add one thing. Our Civic Club introduced that resolution, a similar resolution, at the Civic Club convention last year, and I have to say that in committee, which is standing room only, I was the only person who spoke in favor. Every single person there spoke against. And a really interesting thing happened, and I'm telling you this for a reason. Two people in the group, everybody who's a delegate can vote. One was Bruce Kepler, who stood up and wanted to add information. And he said this: no matter what your position is on the issue of sovereignty, you cannot deny our history, and you need to listen. And the other person who spoke up was Judge Heen. And Judge Heen said, may I offer a friendly amendment? And what happened was he worked with me, and I was good with that, to change the wording a little bit so that it could pass. Then when we came back to committee, overwhelmingly in support. I mean, everybody supported it, and it went on to the floor. what I'm saying is that the issues are so difficult. People don't always want to hear because they're looking at loss. But the reality is we have to have that discussion. And I'm hoping that this investigative committee will allow us to do that, to have people engage in something much larger than us against them. Because there's a subtext running here every time a Hawaiian issue comes up. Nobody really asks the question is like, how come we don't have an inventory of ceded lands? How come? Nobody asks those questions because this stuff is going on underneath that nobody wants to deal with. I'm hoping that you guys pass this reso and we can move forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Lehua, Lu'uwai, in support. Leon Siu, in support. Dennis Mopoki, Kamehele.
Hi, aloha, good morning. I'm in support of this resolution. I think it's about time that we get from legislature a formal investigation on this. I think more so I'm happy because what comes out of that investigation will be important in our communities, and just provide all the answers to the questions that have been put down on the ground right now. But it's important that this bill gets passed, and I'm fully behind it. It might just be an investigation. What I really want to see in the talks, the discussions, is the impact on the findings, which Professor Cruz just brought up, and some. So it may seem small, but this is like the whole country, the whole kingdom is involved in this, and all the impacts and multiplier effect that it has on the state. We all know that. It's been years and years of denial, and it's got to start someplace. And I think, I'm not really, I don't really recognize this state or the federal government as anything, but I got to deal with it. And most Hawaiians are going through that right now. So this is good. I hope you guys get it passed and finally get down to real business on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Filipo Souza.
Aloha, kakahiaka. Oh, boy. Hey, we got to stop meeting like this. Wow. I want to thank the committee. I want to thank especially whoever brainstormed to have something that has been so much needed. Excuse me, I'm Filipo Souza. I don't have a PhD. I don't have a master's. Some people believe I have a master's in BS. But I do have a JOB. And my job is being pono. That's all I'm concerned about. I have no claims on lands or anything. No royalty or anything. A number of years ago, my ancestors came here as laborers. And they left an area that used to take advantage over people. And they came to this country, basically, seeking a new life. And they found it. They found it by the grace of the Hawaiian people. The Hawaiian people did not bring them here. The plantations brought them here. But the Hawaiian people made it comfortable for them, accepted them. And I could go on and on with that. As you know, the Kauai Hau incident is going on. It's been going on for quite some time. I'm part of it basically because, again, I want it to be pono. Past Sunday was Alihi Sunday. And we stood outside, 25 or 30 of us outside on the public way. And we looked upon the people coming to the service. Alihi Sunday attracts a lot of people. a lot of people. And as the people entered, I seen there was something was missing. When you go to a religious service, whatever denomination you may be, normally there is happiness because you're going there. I seen people coming in that weren't happy. Their faces was very sad. In fact, their eyes had shadows. And I seen the same thing in an inauguration back in December 6, as I stood again with 25 or 30 people outside. We stood there for the purpose not of protesting Governor Abercrombie's election. We stood there because we felt there was a desecration going on. And on December 6, in 1852, Kamehameha III, Kawikiahole, validated his decree with the people by giving them the Constitution, which was officially accepted by the legislative body and all elected officials of then, recognizing that the people were part of the Hawaiian nation. And as we stood outside on the King Street side of Iolani Palace ground, I seen the same blank in the people's faces that I seen this past Sunday at Kauai. I'm enlightened to come here because I see your eyes. I do not see what I saw Sunday, nor what I saw on December 6th. And I am very thankful for you as a committee looking into this once and for all. I did not submit. I'm getting so tied up with submitting written testimonies because I'm not used to do this. And I can't, for one, figure out how do I send this on the email, because as you can see it's pretty big, yeah? But this is my written testimony. Just a few words. No treaty of annexation. So again, I thank you. I thank you for your brightness. You are accepting a challenge that is far beyond what you will realize, that you're realizing right now. You're going to get all kind of oppositions. All I can ask you is to be pono. Mahalo.
Thank you very much. Pono ke aloha.
I'd like to thank every one of you for bringing this to light. I appreciate it. I really do. If you look if you go onto Google and you Google the 8 stages of genocide, Hawaii not only meets all 8, but we exceed it. This is constantly going on for over 118 years. It's time that we put an end to this and we start being pono with each other and with ourselves. Mahalo again. Thank you. Aloha.
Thank you very much. Nancy Monroe.
Aloha no. Nancy Monroe, District 47. I came here as a college student from Oregon. I don't have any Hawaiian blood. I took classes at UH Hilo, Hawaiian Studies, Edith Kanakaole, Pua Kanahele, Nalani Kanahele, and Kalani Mainiki. None of the sovereignty issues were ever brought up. I've lived here over 30 years. I only learned about it last year, the resolution between President Cleveland and Lili uokalani. Went to the library, did a little research, and I'm just amazed that so few people are aware that the Hawaiian Kingdom actually still exists. It's recognized by the World Court in The Hague through the Larson case from the Big Island. This is not a state. The annexation was illegal. It's just amazing to me to learn this, that the actual Kingdom of Hawaii still exists. And what's starting here today, if it goes all the way through and it is done pono, this is huge, and this could lead to the restoration of the kingdom. And it's a scary thing because it has so many legal implications. And I understand there are already people that are putting things in place for it to happen. So it's really, really huge. And if it starts here today, I'm so happy to be a part of it. I have no, personal interest of my own, not being Hawaiian, but just realizing it's the right thing. And it's just amazing to me that so few people know, and I hope through what's going on today, more people will learn of it, and the time is near. I thank you so much. Aloha.
Thank you. Alex, Luca?
Aloha kakahiaka.
Hi, aloha.
Thank you, Ms. Chair, Vice Chair. I am here to speak in behalf of this resolution. My credentials are that I got kicked out of every school that I attended through my life. I found there was something in error all through my years. There was something wrong. And then I spent 35 years working for the federal government. And in the last 5 years, I had learned the truth. There was a bit of truth out there in the public. When this subject came up, I got off my ass and came down here. Thank you for inviting us all. I came across a letter from Queen Lili in 1897. It was hand-carried to the Congress of the United States. And in that letter, she expressed the perpetuation of the fraud. And myself being an altar boy, all the way till I was 11th grade, I was an altar boy in a Catholic church. Something was wrong. I just couldn't put my finger on it. But with this letter, when she talks about the perpetration of the fraud, the ramifications of that is that we've been living under that. We got to go to church every Sunday and thank the good Lord that we live under this fraud. We look around, we look at our officials. You're representing me through fraud. Uncle Philip was just saying about being Pono. All my life I tried to be Pono. I didn't have any foundation to put my feet down. They told me if I wanted Hawaiian lands, I had to go through a federal program operated by the state. The whole thing was absurd. It was just not manageable from a lowly person like myself. I don't have a degree to handle these kind of issues. So I am in strong support of this, and I thank you very much for bringing it forward. And maybe I can go home Pono someday. I'd like to be Pono in my own country. So I need to share with you that this issue is going on in Egypt and Iran. Whether we have to go through a civil war in order to settle this issue, I have been participating in a process called reinstatement of a Hawaiian nation from the late 90s. And that's why I had to quit my federal job. I just could not two-face the issue. And the best part was, I try to share the issues of information with my family and friends that work for the county and the state. And tell them, brother, you work for the worst government of them all, and you try to convince us that we have hope. And this is the beginning of the hope that's going to open the light to have everybody come home to Pono. So I'm inviting you. This year we are promoting, our process completed 35 legislative sessions. And this year we are seeking to have a free and open elections. The reinstated process will host this. And when this process is completed, as far as the election, is going to be November the 5th, 2011, this year. With that consensus, we will show the world that we are organized and we are ready for transition. And I hope you guys will be ready too. Welcome home. Aloha.
Thank you very much. Dr. Molina Wright? Oh, it's not her. Sorry. Can you raise your hand if you still haven't had a chance to testify? We start on this side of the room and we'll work our way around. Mr. Carpenter.
Chairs Honolulu and Woolley, members of the combined committees, thank you very much for hearing this measure. I'm going to be wearing two hats today. One as the Vice Chairman of the Native Hawaiian Convention, speaking in favor, and one as the Chairman of the Democratic Party of Hawaii, particularly the Hawaiian and Kupuna caucuses, who I know would be very supportive of this particular measure. I'm particularly gratified that Representative Meli Carroll introduced the measure, that Mr. Keanu Sai instigated a lawsuit against the federal government to at least begin the clarification of this issue, which is a part of this resolution. I know that the invocation of Chapter 21 in the Hawaii Revised Statutes to put together a combined effort by both House and Senate by way of investigating committee certainly has the authority and wherewithal to put together a true measure of the import of these measures being examined. I have a concern, however, that I only see a HCR107 in terms of the mechanics of the implementation. It used to be, when we wanted to kill a bill, we'd assign it to at least 3 committees. And I noticed that it's assigned to 3 separate committees. Further, I noticed that there is no complementary House resolution, only the HCR. So if it does not pass in the Senate, this measure, assuming it passes the House, will no longer exist. So we'll go through this exercise again in the next legislative session. So I guess these are some of the concerns I have. I want to be assured by you that you will pursue it to its conclusion, not only here in the House, but also in the Senate as well. I think it's that important. I don't think you'd want to see the parade of people coming back 3 different times here in the House and then repeating those cycles again in the Senate, because that would make a mockery of the intention, the true and wonderful intention of this measure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. And I'll note that none of us here today are responsible for referring bills.
We are Hawaiian affairs.
Oh, sir, please come up.
Aloha, my name is Kenneth Souza Carvalho, and I'm here to say there's only the godly and the ungodly. As everybody has spoken, you are either pono or you are not, and you can judge a tree by the fruit it bears. For 113 years, it's pretty much bad fruit for the state of Hawaii, the territory of Hawaii, even Sanford Dole. Sanford Dole cannot suddenly overthrow a government and think that by overthrowing a government, he comes to dispossess a race of people and their land that is given to them from God above. God gave the Hawaiian people these islands. The whole thing is a fraud, because a race of people does not suddenly fall off the face of the earth. So looking back, okay, God is fair. Everybody knows 80 to 85% of people of Hawaii believe in God and what God does. God not only gives Abraham and Moses their promised land, but he gives to all his different children of different race, culture, ethnics, their own promised land. He gives the English, England, German, Germany, the Russians have Russia. Now, France, these people once killed all of their leaders, but Russia is still Russia. They cut off the heads of the kings, and they killed like Tsar Nicholas. Russia is still Russia. They also killed certain monarchs of England. England is still England. So thank God they didn't kill any Hawaiian, other than I think through some type of medical assassination maybe. But they didn't do these things. So my point is, English have their promised land from God. Germans have their promised land from God. Chinese have their promised land from God. Japanese have their promised land from God. And these islands is given to the Hawaiian people as they are the caretakers of this Aina, ko Hawaii pae aina. And God gave to them. This is their promised land. But what is wrong is all the other children in the world refuse to accept that which God does. But God did take away the land from the Jews because they kept messing up. Okay, now if anyone can take away a country or a land from anyone, it is only God. This power only rests in God. And as others have said, it's all about being godly or ungodly. You can judge everybody by the fruit they bear. But this just has to be looked at from the heart, not from the mind, not from the Yankee and all his lies and fraud that he comes with. So pretty much what they're doing to the Hawaiian people, they come here. It's kind of like this. Say we went to another country, okay? The state of Hawaii, you guys want to make money, the legislators, right? Say you go to a foreign country. Well, you tell those people, you guys are not going to be, maybe just say Japan. You guys are not going to be the country called Japan anymore. We're going to call you the state of Japan. And what we're going to do is we're going to make you guys pay 1/3 or more of your paychecks in taxes. How much money would we get, you know, if we were doing that? But we're not going to let them pay it. We're going to just hijack their paycheck before they even get paid. And then we're going to tell the Japanese people, hey, we now own your land, you know, rich area in Tokyo and stuff like that, you know. You guys now have to pay us property tax on the land that you folks own. Actually, it's the land given to them by God, okay, because they have their country too. And you can also look at just everything, the expense of medical, they take over hospitals, the state of Hawaii makes state bonds, they sell it to foreign countries, and we, the people of Hawaii, got to eat the bill. So you look, they charge up people property tax. If you look at all of these taxes, including as soon as you turn your light on every morning, they're making money off of you. But if you look at all of these taxes that they take from the Hawaiian people, it's probably upwards in the 60, 70, maybe even 80% of the productivity of these islands. These money changers are actually practicing slavery by deception, by using their private money. And the worst thing of all is, you can see this evidence where even in the Newlands resolution, the hearings of that. It's on page, I think, there's like 3,000 pages, but if you look on it, you can see where they even say that when they destroyed the postal banks in Hawaii, they actually were moving backwards rather than going forward. So why the kingdom cannot operate is because the kingdom no longer has their monetary system. What needs to probably be established is get rid of the Yankee flags in Hawaii and give back the Hawaiian people's postal banks so that way they can make the interest off of the credit cards. Huh?
You're in support?
Yeah, I'm in support of the bill, but what I'm just trying to do is educate, because a lot of uneducated people is making decisions or they're holding back from making a decision. But everybody needs to just look into your heart and just do what is. Everybody say pono. And that's how the life of the land is perpetuated. In righteousness. That's everybody's model, but it seems everybody is avoiding this. No decisions, everybody is afraid to come forward. So enough is enough already. That way we don't have to be here. And that's pretty much all I want to say. It's just something that to educate everyone. What you are doing is wrong. Wrong. And the Hawaiian people, they shouldn't be given traffic tickets. They shouldn't even have to put any money in one parking meter to park. You know, and it's all wrong. The courts is all a system of fraud. Everything is fake. And how this came to be is the current money changers. And that's why Obama makes money out of thin air. So they can get their cut because they're taking about 15, 20% every year. So imagine in 5 years, these money changers now own the total amount of what they operate in commerce. So I guess, you know, I've probably spoken enough already, and everybody is either you godly or ungodly. Look in everybody, use your heart, and you know what kind of fruit that tree bears. So thank you, mahalo for listening. I hope it may have some effect. 85% of the people believe in God. Just do what God wants. All his children to have their own promised land and live in harmony.
Thank you very much.
Aloha.
Anyone else from this side of the room? Otherwise, Uncle Joe.
Aloha kapo. Aloha kakayaka. I was hoping I would be the next. I get one 10 o'clock meeting with a speaker.
Yeah, we're trying to move it along.
So I'm going to go very quickly.
We'll
After I retired of 18 years in the state, directing the tour program in this Capitol building, oftentimes being approached by the children, tell me, Uncle Joe, what is sovereignty all about? And I tried to do my part. I went 5 years as a tour conductor and escort for an elder hostel program, Kupuna Malahini. And you know, when our teachers came in and taught these kupuna from elsewhere about the strife that we went through as a result of the overthrow, after the classes were over, the kupuna come up to me and tell me, the Haole kupuna come up to me and tell me, I never know that. And I tell him, you think that's bad? I never know that either. He said, what? He said, the only 3 Hawaiians that you seen, or the 3 people that you seen in your history book, and 2 lines was Kamehameha, Kahanamoko, and the guy James. And they say, James? I say, yeah, James Cook. That's the only 3 guys that you know, you're right. Well, I had the same history book you had, and I never knew that either. At the beginning of the program, I would put the people in a circle. And the circle was to get them to know the second most important word in the Hawaiian vocabulary, which was the beginning with the letter O, Ohana. And these people came from all over the United States and all over the world. And I say, now you Ohana, you are one family. And they held that together throughout the entire program. And at the end of the program, I turn around and I tell my new Ohana, I get 2 words for you. My last 2 words, go home. And they look at me in awe and shock. And I say, you have the kuleana, the responsibility to go home, take the message to your family that our land was stolen. And you know, I get letters that come back to me and tell me, yes, I'm doing that, Uncle Joe. I taking back the message. There are more punas calling me every once in a while and telling me, Uncle Joe, we had one question about Hawaii. And I try to educate them. But you know, this is a long time coming. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else on this side of the room?
Aloha. Aloha kako.
Hi, aloha.
My name is Dr. Stephen Kuhio Vogler, and come from the University of Hawaii, and my degrees in international law, international relations. I support this bill. At the same time, I have a few concerns. This is an undertaking that has huge ramifications for Hawaii and its future, and within that context, there's complexities of international law that come into play that have bearing on Hawaii, specifically as it relates to the concepts of legal order and estoppel and so forth. It's a very good thing that's taking place here, and it's an important thing. But at the same time, as people have said before, this is a huge issue, and bringing it up is something that will certainly raise awareness. But at the same time, it needs to be done. People have said this pono, but it's needs to be taken into consideration all the complexities of the situation. So if we're talking about bringing this forward, or actually having these hearings and committees and so forth, going and discussing this, it needs to be done in the context of international law and how it relates to prolonged occupations. My particular research looked at Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, who were occupied by the Soviet Union for 50 years. And the circumstances that took place there, although they're not exactly the same as Hawaii, have bearing on Hawaii's context. So the way that this is framed is this is looking at specifically the executive agreements. But if we're talking about these two executive agreements, we're talking about them within the context of U.S. law, Hawaiian Kingdom law, and international law. And so, if we are taking on that larger topic there, or that context, it needs to be taken into account within the idea of international law. And that's really what we're talking about, what Hawaii's status is under international law, and what Hawaii's future is.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Thank you, committee members. My name is Blaise Bisson. I am testifying in support. I apologize, I don't have written testimony. I've been traveling. I'm a graduate of the Kamehameha Schools, UH Law School back in 1989. I've been an international business developer, businessman for 20 years. Currently, I run a private equity firm called PNPO Capital Development. And we have 5 counterterrorism companies that we deal internationally, and literally there's hundreds of millions of dollars at stake in what we do. The reason I say that is because when I became aware of this some 10 years ago, what happened in Hawaii and how it's progressed, I mean, it's affecting our business. I'm testifying on the impact from the private sector. I personally did the due diligence on this. I know Keanu Sai very well. I've taken political science classes, and all of the work product that we've come across is solid. It's so solid that we're banking, like I said, hundreds of millions of dollars on it. We deal with countries, Russia, China, and they're all aware of this, and we need to answer it from the business side. But, you know, having born and raised here, and I understand politics. My granduncle was Hiram Fong. You know, I grew up in politics. I understand what you folks do. But I'm just here to testify in support of it. We're investing in it. It's not a lot of valao, you know. This is true stuff. So whatever happens, it's like a tsunami. This thing, our position is this thing's coming regardless. And it's funny, you use that tsunami metaphor. One of our companies actually has shown that terrorists can make an H-bomb and create a tsunami. And we've talked to Singpak here and Condoleezza Rice, all these people. They're aware of this stuff. So we deal with very serious things here. Yeah. So I hope you look favorably upon this. And thank you for letting me testify.
Thank you very much. Anybody else?
Aloha, everyone. Aloha. My name is Sylvia Cruson-Rack, and I'm here to say I support this because everyone must know the truth. I was 50 years old. I had been an advocate for human rights in California around the wars that were going on then, 30 years ago, learning the things that my country was doing all over the world, what the military was doing all over the world. I learned a lot about that. And then I came home 30 years ago and learned about Hawaii. I was 50 years old. I did not know one thing about my home, Hawaii. I was outraged. No one I knew. My family didn't know, and they'd been here forever. That has got to stop. Everyone has the right to know the truth about what happened to this place, every bit of the truth. So I urge you to continue exposing this all so we can have the investigation and come to a pono conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else here to testify this morning? If not, members, questions? All right. Now, moving on to the final two measures on our agenda.